All right, I see we got Alex and Hung from Native on the stage, and Nick. Hey guys.
Hey, how are
Oh,
you doing?
hey everyone, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Well, thanks for joining. Alex, I'll hand it off to you, and you can go ahead and kick off this exciting topic on universal DeFi, and I'll spread the space around the Zeta Chain community, and let's try to fill this up.
Sure. So thanks, Sean. I'm really excited for this space today. There's a couple of upcoming roadmap and projects that have been building with us that are in the pipeline that I can't wait to speak about later. But today I wanted to bring in Native Lens as well as Symbiosis into the chat today. So with Native Lens, we've been chatting with for a pretty long time, and it's great to see that we finally got things started off together. And looks like launch has been pretty successful so far. And now we have Symbiosis enabling any-to-any chain swaps into Zeta Chain. Very interesting to see. I've been in the bull market for about the past 8 years now in the entire crypto space, and actually I've interacted with Symbiosis for quite a bit as well during my last couple of years. So very excited to finally be doing an AMA with some of the core team members here. But anyway, before I kick it off, I'll introduce myself briefly, then give it over to Hung and then Nick. But great to be great to be talking to everyone. My name is Alex, BD here at Zeta Chain. Very excited to be here, and I'll give it over to Hung.
Hello, I'm Hong. I'm product lead of Native, and happy to be here as well.
All right, Symbiosis, do we have them here?
Yes, I'm here, sir. So happy to be here as well. So yes, my name is Nick. I'm co-founder of Symbiosis. I'm non-technical co-founder, even though I'm pretty much tech savvy, but I have my partners to make sure that our tech is smooth and secure. So we are cross-chain MMDEX. Happy to support Zeta Chain. And yeah, happy to be here today. I think that our conversation would be very insightful.
Awesome. Well, for any new listeners that are here today, I'll give a very brief introduction about Zeta Chain before I ask our guests here to describe what Native Lens as well as Symbiosis is. But for anyone that's just tuning in for the first time, Zeta Chain is the first universal blockchain. And simply put, think of us as a middle layer, right? Think of, even though we're in L1, think of us as the hub for all cross-chain interactions. So what you're able to do is you're able to open one liquidity pool on Zeta Chain and manage those assets across all of our connected chains, deploy one smart contract, and enable all those different functions for all of our connected chains as well, enabling true interoperability. This has been the biggest goal and the biggest vision for all of us here at Zeta Chain is to really enable this omni-chain interoperable future by also enabling our own smart contracts, our own messaging as well, just to make sure that we're able to really enable true interoperability between all chains. But so far, we're in this sprint to continue growing out our DeFi ecosystem and slowly finding the right partners to really truly utilize the technology that Zeta Chain has to offer to our users and our community members as well. But I'll give it over to Hung to describe what native lens is and afterwards symbiosis.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. For native, we are for retail user. Actually, native lend is just a regular lending and borrowing protocol. But what happens behind the scene that makes it us unique is that we collaborate with multiple professional market makers. They can utilize the inventory of native to power their RFQ trading. So that could give us a good advantage of the capital efficiency because market makers utilize those deep liquidity. They can provide very competitive quote, and using this quote, they can make money. And by borrowing this asset for fulfilling their swapping requirement, essentially will charge the market makers for the position, opening the position. So the fee they pay will eventually coming back to the retail user. So conceptually, it's like we allow retail user to lend money to those professional high frequency trader on chain to allow the asset being utilized by the professional players, the traders. So yeah, get the smart money to work for you. So yeah, that's pretty what native does in a nutshell. And the concept, we manage the market makers' ability to quote and to borrow is managed by something we invented called credit margin engine. So that's a credit engine basically to decide how much market makers can quote and to make sure that they doesn't that users' money is not at risk at all. So yeah, that's what Native does.
Awesome. Symbiosis?
So as per Symbiosis, as I mentioned, we are cross-chain memdex, and that's more precise definition than bridge, because typically some people talk that we are just a bridge, but we are not just doing bridging, but we are fully fledged MMDEX with constant product MM model. And so we support 34 networks. We are live since 2022, so already 2 years, and we are proud that we are among those solutions to the market that never been hacked, because we have solid partners in terms of the security and so on and so forth. So our edge to the market is that we are allowing users and other businesses to swap any token from chain A into any token on chain B. So it's not limited just to stables or something. And so yes, we are happy to provide this service both on our own website and our platform, but also we support different aggregators like DeFi and Socket and some others that are using Symbiosis API and the hood. Yes, and as I mentioned, me personally, I'm a big fan of ZetaChain. We've been in touch for, I think, for almost 2 years or something, and we're supporting ZetaChain, and we see an huge influx of users and volume coming into ZetaChain through Symbiosis, and we are happy to support this.
Awesome. Well, I want to start off with Symbiosis. Your team has been in this space for a very long time. Even I started using your product in the last bull market. And specifically for Symbiosis, you're one of the first interoperability solutions in Web3. And in my opinion, one of the first to introduce this wrap synthetic tokens across all chains using your octopools. Can you describe how the user experience is like using octopools and what the results are like? Pretty much just explaining what octopools are and your interoperability solution for the listeners here.
Yes, sure. So, actually, to tell the truth, the user itself never like experienced directly the octopole, because it's like a kitchen behind the protocol. And from user perspective, swapping from like any chain into like Zeta chain, for instance, it's just one-click experience. You need to sign a transaction on the original chain, and you don't need to pay for the gas on the destination chain, for instance, because we are covering this. So just one-click experience as with any other on-chain DEX like Uniswap, PancakeSwap, and so on and so forth. But this pool that we have in the middle, we put this name of Octopool precisely because our mascot actually is Octopus, and we decided to play around with this naming. So it's a system of synthetic pools between all the chains, and these synthetic pools are deployed in stablecoin. Typically, we use USDT or USDC. Before that, we've been in touch with some other stablecoin providers like GUSD and FDUSD and some others, but we ended up with just USDC and USDT pools and gas tokens. So we either have a pool of stablecoin between all the chains or a gas token. For instance, Ethereum deployed across like Arbitrum, Optimism, Base, and some others. And that's how we achieving this any-to-any swap functionality, while users can like swap like virtually any token on chain A that have liquidity on some DEX, on chain DEX, into any token on chain B. And that's it. The design is pretty much, I would say, simple. We decided to keep it as simple as we can, just to avoid some potential angle of attacks. So we've been advised by our security partners and so on and so forth to rely on battle tested technology like MPC and threshold signature scheme, and not to like invent something not tested. So I would say once again that from user perspective, user never directly experience using Octopool because it's done under the hood, but all the swaps like processed either via stablecoin pool or gas token pool. For some direction of swaps, for instance, typically users swap either into stablecoin or into a gas token because they need to have like a gas station terminal or something to pay for the gas on the destination chain. And that's why, in order to avoid one additional step into swapping into stable, we established also pools in gas tokens. We're also thinking about doing pretty much the same logic for some other gas token pools, like maybe on Polygon or some other, but we honestly we haven't yet seen a lot of demand from users for those networks. So mostly those pools that we have are either stablecoin or Ethereum gas token pools. Yeah, I just tried to elaborate it as much as I can. Please ask any question in case you have one.
Awesome. And to give it over to Hung from Native Lend, can you talk a bit about how the idea was conceptualized? When I first discovered Native, just being honest, it did have a value add when it came to the PMM structure, and I wonder what that experience has been like for users, and what has the traction been like so far with Native?
Yeah. So yeah, I'll start with what's the pain point we identify and why we decide to build native in this direction. So previously, we have been working with many PMM, the professional market makers, and they do RFQ, that stands for request for quote. We work with them a lot, and basically we're a very similar model with Hashflow, where they aggregate the quotes from multiple market makers, the quotes, and always return the best one. So RFQ has a couple of benefits over AMM. One of them is the capital efficiency. So the pricing is discovered off chain, is decoupled from the inventory existing on chain. So the tokens, they don't no longer need a very deep liquidity on chain to maintain the X times Y is equals K for large trade. That slippage is no longer an issue as well, because the price is got discovered off chain, and we just do a settlement on chain, so there's no slippage. And MEV is not like the direct MEV that we can happen, the sandwich attack and so on. So these are some RFQ benefit over AMM models. But for those professional market makers, one pain point for them is that the capital for them is very costly. So because it's all opportunity cost, many of the professional market makers, they are active. They're very active on this centralized exchange, but they don't really want to deploy the capital on chain. And especially for the smaller token, they don't want to hold exposure to that. And also they don't want to deploy on some new chains. Especially we can see the layer twos, all kinds of new chains coming out every week, every month. So market makers doesn't really want to deploy their capital over there. So what native come into play is that we want to match the need of the asset supplier and the demand. Demand is the market makers. And for some airdrop hunters or the retails, they are willing to hold some meme coin, or they want to participate in the liquidity provision to these professional market makers. So this is where Native build a platform where retail user can provide their asset on Native, and market makers can utilize this asset to do their quoting. So not only the smaller tokens that market maker can access, but also the large asset the market maker can access. Because if they only deploy 100,000 on chain, the maximum amount they can quote is $1,000. But if they work with Native, say Native has a TVL of 2 million, they can actually quote an order that is 2 million. And actually, the larger order size is where RFQ have even more competitive edge over AMM, because for the AMM models, the larger the order, the higher the slippage. But usually, for most of the pair, centralized exchange, where market makers do the price discovery, centralized exchange has much more liquidity than on-chain. So usually market maker can quote a much better quote on-chain, much better quote than AMA models. But the only missing piece here is the inventory. So Native is trying to come in here to solve the problem for professional market makers, that the inefficiency for them on-chain. So yeah, this is the conceptual idea about what problem Native is trying to solve.
And going on from what you said earlier, you mentioned with L2s, there's just so many of them right now, and all these new different L1s that are currently launching every single week at this point. From the market maker's perspective, exactly what has been the reception been like for these new L2s and L1s? Do we really need all these L2s or L1s right now? And where do you see all of this going from your perspective?
From market makers' perspective, they don't really. Okay, my personal perspective, I don't really see. Maybe some L1 or L2 really have their innovation and they are specialized on doing particular things. Maybe a social file or particular application specific stuff they want to do. But for market makers, actually, they don't care that much. Wherever there's a profit, they are willing to go there and do quoting there to facilitate the quoting and trading behavior there. And this is also another advantage for newer chains. So if they say there's a new chain coming up, and the chain want to provide a good swapping user experience here, they don't want a high slippage. They, like I mentioned, they need to collect lots of inventory, lot of TVO on the chain to make sure the MM pool is deep enough for the user coming here to have a good swapping experience. They are expecting, say, this chain have Ether and USDT. I get a similar price that I can get on, say, Ethereum. But to doing that, you need to have a very deep pool here, similar to the pool on Ethereum mainnet. But for market makers, they can just give a quote directly off chain. They sign the message saying that 1 Ether is how many USDT directly, and decoupling from the liquidity actually on chain. So this can also provide a better user experience for the new chains and for the users on the new chain, and also market makers can profit from that as well. So for market makers' perspective, I think they don't care it that much for like what chains are on and what kind of assets are newly listed. For them, wherever there's a profit, market makers is willing to go there, and only barrier for them, as I mentioned, is that they don't want to deploy a capital right there. So what Native can help is that, yeah, we can spin up a lending protocol there and allow the retail user to put in money, and the chain team themselves, they can help bootstrap the liquidity as well to allow the market maker to come in and provide an excellent experience of the swapping. So yeah, this is a native standpoint and value proposition for new chains and L1, L2.
Okay, cool. So I also wanted to go into this topic because it seems like in Web3 right now, there's a lot of L1s and L2s, but currently it seems like a lot of these L1s and L2s, I've been digging a lot deeper into some of these existing protocols and chains, and it seems like for most of these chains, the most important, it seems like most of the TVL that's coming into these chains, around 90 to 95% of it is in a lending market. And when I go specifically deeper dive into these lending markets, I see that in these lending markets, there's about 100, in some cases, even $200 million being supplied as assets. Most of them being some other wrap token assets, but it's like 200 million. But I see that there's around $4,000 being actively borrowed against that $200 million against that current asset right now. What are your thoughts around this, right? Because for a user or for me, when I see that, it's kind of telling me that sure, there's a lot of assets right now, but not a lot of users are actively borrowing against those supplied assets. And this goes for a question to Native is what is the future of lending markets, right? If right now it seems like the current strategy for a lot of L1s and even L2s is simply to deposit most of these assets into a lending market. But it just seems like not a lot of users are actively borrowing against it. And second, for symbiosis is it seems like right now in the L1, L2 space, there's a lot of demand for a lot of these wrapped assets, in particular Bitcoin assets. What role does symbiosis play into this, and how do you see this? Well, what's your strategy around these wrapped Bitcoin assets, or even native Bitcoin as well in the future? And where do you see the next true interoperability or DeFi use case being for native Bitcoin? So, just to reiterate, for Hung, what do you think about the role of lending markets in existing L1s and L2s? And the example and scenario I just shared you, and for symbiosis, what's the role of native Bitcoin and the use case of these other wrapped Bitcoin assets?
Who answers first? Actually, I can jump in. Regarding BTC landscape and its role in, let's say, future of the market and interoperability and so on and so forth, and what is our angle here. So I will split my answer into several sections. So first, definitely we look into that, and we've been participating in, I think in April this year, in not April, in May, in Hong Kong, in Bitcoin Asia, where a lot of projects that are presenting like scaling solutions for Bitcoin were present. And actually, we managed to integrate some of them. So we integrate Rootstock, Merlin, and we in touch with, I would say, almost every single project that are working into scaling Bitcoin, like BounceBeat and so on and so forth. So definitely would love to support all of them. Regarding BTC itself, so definitely we aiming at presenting our native Bitcoin bridge this year. So it's been postponed several times due to security reasons because we were not aware that we were not 100% sure regarding the security model behind. But now seems like we're at the final stage for this, so we will present the native Bitcoin bridge soon, and that would be available not only on our own app but also within our network of partners, like once again DeFi and Socket and OKXDEX and all the rest who support this. As for me, I believe that the introduction of Bitcoin into like DeFi space is very interesting, not in terms only like borrowing markets or something that we already saw in DeFi, but mostly because of the potential for new business model to emerge. For instance, we've been in touch with Strom Network. They're also working on BTCL2 scaling solution. And the thing is, they were at least at the time of the talking to the team, they were looking to providing some additional income in terms of the fees from state channels in Lightning Network. And that's pretty much interesting because it goes just beyond just typical use cases of DeFi that we currently have, like lending market, prediction markets, derivatives, and so on and so forth. So for me and for Symbiosis, we believe that the introduction of Bitcoin and especially native Bitcoin into DeFi ecosystem, we can see the I would say the uprise of different new business model, new revenue streams, and so on and so forth, and especially with maybe some fixed income products and so on and so forth. So that's what I'm definitely looking into, and that's where we see our angle, how we will navigate in this changing environment.
And Hung, back to you. The question again was, what's the role of lending markets and what's the role of lending markets in these other L1s and L2s, given that for some L1s and L2s, the main TVL driver seems to be lending markets, but however, there seems to be a really mass disproportion of users supplying and actively borrowing against those assets. How can we fix that?
Yeah, so I think we have been thinking about these questions as well. Like, what's the actual need for user for they come in for just to lend out the asset, or they actually come in for borrowing? So one of the actually after some of our research, one conclusion that we have is that most of the use case for the actual borrowing, those heavy borrower, they are coming here actually for farming the points essentially. So because if we exclude the point, they're always paying more borrowing rate than the supplying rate they are earning. So one use case we see, especially for those tokens you mentioned just now about the wrapping, the staking, restaking tokens. One of the use case here is just to loop it over and over so they can earn more leverage multiple times for the points or the airdrop they are eligible with. So I think, yeah, that's a very fundamental problem that we are trying to figure out as well. I think for native perspective, we're trying to add on top of that. So to add more use case for the inventory itself. So the inventory is not only to be utilized by the permissionless borrower that they put in collateral and under collateralized to over collateralized to borrow the asset, where many of the retail user might not be relevant to do that. Market makers have the incentive to use that because they can actually utilize the asset to to make money, to profit from that, and also they are willing to take the position to bear the cost of the borrowing fee. As for coming back for a more objective view, like outside of native, we're always looking ahead for like Aave and Compound, what they're doing. I think mostly Aave. So I think the roadmap of the Aave is very clear that they are doing a liquidity layer, like trying to make it chain agnostic to aggregate the liquidity of among the different chains. So I think for coming back to the native angle, we have a similar concept or effect that the fee or the positions that we have on multiple chains is going to be eventually converge because of the market makers, because they own positions and they pay fee on different chains and different trading venues. So eventually, kind of market makers will balance out the fee and the position on each chain. So it also reflects on the quote they give as well. So kind of they can aggregate the liquidity up across multiple chains and eventually use the deep liquidity, aggregate the liquidity altogether to give out their quote when market makers is quoting for native. Yeah, it's a bit here and there. So yeah, but this is a high level idea in my mind. But this is, I would say, I don't have a really clear and simple answer to your question. Just like sharing what I know and what we are working on and what we see previously. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess I guess the last question that I wanted to give here to the both of you is, it looks like there's finally some silence in the space and the market right now. It seems like a lot of the narratives have dried up a little bit, and we're not exactly sure what the next narratives are in to come in the entire space. But what we do know is that all three of us are working as hard as possible to introduce really good products into the community and also our users. So, can both of you share what some of the next product roadmap looks like for Symbiosis and Native? Can you share any alpha to the community here?
Yeah, I can go first. So we recently just released our bridging feature for the market makers. So it's kind of they can not only do a quoting on the same chain, they can do a cross chain quoting as well. So similarly, they don't need to have the inventory on the destination chain. They can borrow from native to fulfill the bridging request, but we don't actually do the bridging ourselves. So we are kind of want to collaborate with different bridging aggregators to facilitate the process. And so what native is trying, I think the roadmap of native now is that we have the credit margin engine in place, and we are onboarded with some key partner of market makers. We are looking for more for sure, but the other angle is that we are looking to onboard to more chains and new trading venues to attract more order flow from different DEX aggregator, bridge aggregators, and wallets, different front end and asset issuers where they want to issue one tokens on multiple chains. So recently we're working very closely with Stakestone. So they want to issue a stone on different chains and provide a good user experience of the trading experience without actually needing to deploy AMM pools on all chains. So right now native is at an expanding phase to expand to more chains, new partners. Yeah, so we are happy to see this flywheel as we attract more TVL. Market makers can quote a larger quote, and a larger quote will be a higher advantage over AMM. So they're quoting more, and quoting more will reflect to more APY being paid to the liquidity provider, and it will attract more TVL coming in. So this is the current stage of native, and we are working toward that direction.
And for Symbiosis?
Yes, so as per where we are navigating, I would say that we are deeply looking into like BTC L2 landscape. We also like planning to deploy H Bitcoin bridge. And apart from that, we're also thinking about playing around with narrative regarding Telegram, Open Network Tone, and all those tabs that emerging quickly, like gaming tabs and some others. And so we present our Telegram Tone bridge 2 months ago, and we are planning to deploy second version that would be much more efficient than the previous one. So yeah, that's mostly it.
Okay, awesome. Well, I think we're at time, to be honest. So, yeah, it seems we're at time, and I just want to thank everyone here for. I just want to thank both of the speakers here for coming today and talking about their product and really answering some of these questions to the community. These are just some of the things that I was thinking about this entire past couple weeks as well. It's just where is all of this going and exactly what the future of DeFi is. Again, there just seems to be a lot of new innovation happening literally every single week with other native assets, wrapped assets, representations of native assets being used in DeFi. But I'm not quite sure that we're still there yet. I still think that we have to find that flagship product that really brings all of those things together. So I'm really looking forward to see that happening. Hopefully on ZetaChain, and I'm really pioneering the way for future DeFi as well. But again, I wanted to thank both speakers here for coming today and talking to our community about it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks for having me here.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right, thank you. Bye bye.